Hello, everyone. Happy Sunday. Happy November. It's so great. It's so cold outside. Or it's getting colder, which is great. Um, I hope you guys are having a fantastic Sunday. Yeah, we'll be talking about music, but also just kind of thinking things in the way of art. If you are not a musician or composer, fear not. This always links to art in general. But we will be talking about music platforms and stuff. Lots of stuff to talk about. My mind is full. But let's see how audio sounds first. Okay, audio is loud and clear. That's good because the microphone's, I don't know, about a little bit about a foot away from my face. Speaking of face, let me let me first take the banner off. That is my original track, Sunkissed from 2019. You can find at soundengraver.com. Right before this stream too, someone purchased, I don't know who it was, but someone purchased a few of my albums like right before the stream. So I thought that was nice. So thank you to Miss Carla Hernandez, I think. Maybe that's Andreas. I don't know. Oh, I forgot to take the banner off. Hide. One sec. All right. There. Good. It's getting warm where I can wear more sweater-like shirts, which is also nice. We'll welcome the chat and then we'll get right to it because there's a lot of stuff to talk about. There's no way I'm going to cover everything I want to talk about on this stream. I guess it would be worth doing videos in the future. I'm not at that point right now to do YouTube videos because I've been really working on my EP. I'll give you an update on that too. But let's first welcome the chat and then talk about music and art and the problems of today's music listening experience, which I call, and I'm not the first one to coin this term, but the playlistification of music. So let's first welcome Ghost Planet. You were first. Thank you so much for coming. Samuel Proctor, thank you also for coming. We have a new person, Imaginaria. Is that how you would pronounce it? Good to see you. Excited to hear your insights about this. Well, I hope I have some. I'm not an expert. This is more what I think. This is speculation from my own music experience. And I gotta scroll all the way down to make sure the video is clear, looking clear and beautiful as always. Thank you, my prof, my wonderful husband. Let me scroll back on up. Ace is saying we've got he's got a 2-hour drive ahead of him. Well, safe travels. This might be a 2-hour stream. You might be right at your destination right when the stream ends. Just depends on how much I have to say. But I do have to make a phone call after this, so might not keep you for too long. Professor Geek, ready for your wisdom, my shield maiden. Thank you, Professor. And we've got Ace saying hello to everyone. Also, Crystal Ashes, good to see you as well. Adega Outlaw is also good. It is also good to see you. Let's see. I think Brian. Oh, you know, I keep forgetting channel members. You get your comments posted up. I'm assuming this will be about the quality of the streaming plus something about copyrights. I think yeah, there's gonna be that and a few other factors I'm gonna be talking about tonight. And so maybe you'd be interested just as a music listener. Maybe, coming from a place, I'm a music educator, a musician. I didn't like the word music or term music educator like 10 years ago. I have more of an appreciation for it now. So I am a music teacher, but the stuff I would like to teach in the future is more all-encompassing music education. So yeah, teacher, musician, composer. So if you're a music listener, and who isn't, right? Apparently a lot of people. Yeah, anyway. Yeah, we'll cover all those bases, Brian Gilmartin. We've got Crystal Ashes. Thank you so much for joining. And then Dig Outlaw is excited. Now he's a writer. And he might have some sensibilities with music, considering his new book had come out and just published called, is it called The Reach? Dig Outlaw. I want to make sure that I got the title right. So you can find that book on Amazon. Sci-fi fantasy, it sounds like. Final Fantasy fan, good to see you. Numacron, good to see you too, because you definitely listen to my music videos. Happy to have you. And Scorpiopio is also with us. For some reason, says Ace, I don't know this reference. I apologize. For some reason, the music is giving me, my Sunkissed track is giving me Same vibes as some of the music from Ape Escape. Escape. You'll have to confirm. Is that a game? Is that an animated show? Oh, a puzzle game maybe. All right. This has nothing to do with music. I just want to make a comment on Ghost Planet's comment. Apparently, Popeye, the Sailor Man, he's going to become public domain. I don't know how soon, but people just expect this. When characters become public domain, no matter who they are, you're gonna have some people who are going to do whatever they want with that character. Let me get some more light. Any anything. So horror, nihilism, whatever the case is, we just have to accept it. And then do our own thing with these characters if you want to. That's the landscape we're about to cross when it comes to public domain. And honestly, I think it's fine. It doesn't personally bother me. Um, Especially if you counteract with something that you don't like with something that you do like. Brian says this coming work week will be a short one for me. Only 3 days, then I'll be on vacation for Thanksgiving and all next week. That's nice. I am working. He's a professor, so he has the week off this next week. I'm still working, but people are like, "Oh, I'm so sorry." I'm like, I actually like it. You know, I really have no complaints about my job. Teaching music lessons, especially with students that are sticking with me, like for months and years. I'm like, it's not a bad job. It's not. It's a really good job to have for my at this stage in my life. So yeah, I'm obviously I'm not working Thursday, but I'll be working the other days, and I'm fine with that. Which it means I don't have to make up lessons in the future, which is kind of hard to do. Let's see. Happy Thanksgiving to you too, Ghost Planet. Gigawatt, good to see you. I haven't seen you in a while. Am I the only person on the planet who hasn't used Spotify? It's fine if you haven't. And we'll be talking about that. We'll be talking about that. And when I say Spotify, yeah, I might be talking about Spotify directly, but it's coming from a business corporate model that is permeating throughout other platforms as well, other music platforms. So it's I'm not just harping on Spotify. This is the nature of the beast with a lot of other things concerning music and maybe art in general. So whatever I have to talk about in the future of this stream will lead into a direct to market model I want to follow as an artist. But let me keep welcoming the chat so I can keep getting to my topic. Let's see, you guys are talking amongst yourselves. Okay, good. All right, good. I think I've welcomed everybody. I hope. Just say the word if I haven't welcomed you, but that should be everyone in the chat at least. Thank you. I already lost a few listeners since I was welcoming the chat. Okay, so let's talk about the downfall of music streaming and why I've left Spotify as a music artist. Now, the first things first is when I say downfall of music streaming, the platforms are gonna exist. They're gonna stay. But I think people through YouTube commentary, through discussion, I think people are getting more and more aware of how poor the listening experience is with using a music streaming platform like Spotify. Now, let's first talk. There's a number of things to talk about, and I probably won't cover all the bases today. But let's first talk about playlists. We're going to get right into the meat and potatoes of the discussion. So, um, I left Spotify. We'll start with leaving Spotify. I left Spotify for a number of reasons, which I will cover as a musician and composer. So, if you look for Sound Engraver, my name right here on Spotify, what you will tend to see, at least I see, maybe your experience is different, but you'll see that I might be a listener or someone who has an account on Spotify. I need to get rid of that maybe eventually too. But as far as my music is concerned, releasing music on Spotify, you may see whether my own discography of separate albums and single tracks or my music inside playlists. What you will see is a graying out if it's not completely deleted. So you might not see Sound Engraver at all, or if you do, she is inactive on playlists. I'm found I found out at first it wasn't a problem, but then I feel weird about it. I found out my music is on a number of playlists. And I wanted to talk about playlists and the problems of playlists for the listening experience. The playlistification that I have heard coined, the term coined, yeah. Now, first of all, playlists on their own is not a problem. You can have playlists for your favorite YouTube channels and videos. And with music in particular, you can have your own personally designed, endorsed playlists. You know, Professor Geek, for instance, he's got a Halloween playlist. He's got a colonial playlist, you know, for fall and Thanksgiving. He's got a Christmas playlist. He's got a hair metal playlist. He's got all these playlists for different things, from albums that he personally likes, from artists he personally likes. And so if you're a person who has developed your own playlists for car rides, for train rides, to commute, to do chores, that's all fine. I'm not talking about that. That's a good thing to do, I think. I don't personally do it myself, because when I listen to music, it's actually a very personal experience. I'm usually at my computer. I might be working on a story. I might be just browsing for different things and listening to music intently, whether that's I dare say, curated music list from a classical music station on YouTube, a classical musical channel on YouTube, or a specific album by a specific artist. Now, I might do this on YouTube, or I might just listen to the album that I had purchased, for instance. So I have a different listening experience. Now, I feel like my listening experience as a person, not even as a musician, is different from most people, because I like to listen to the whole album. So if I feel like listening to Dream Theater, for instance, I think they had an album a few years back called Untethered Angel. I'll try to listen to all the tracks, and maybe there's more. There are always tracks I like way more that I will listen to on repeat, and maybe there are tracks that I appreciate but don't really care for. I might skip, but I do like the album experience for my favorite artists, for my favorite bands. I usually listen to the complete album, especially if it's thematically coherent all the way through. And I think that's the mark of a really good music album, is that if it has the same atmosphere, mood, and music theme, maybe even the same instrumentation. Maybe the instruments are different between tracks, but there's a coherence. And that's the mark of a good composer, when they're aware of the albums and the EPs and the single tracks that they're producing. That's always been my endeavor when producing music. So Sunkissed has a very specific feel. My single tracks, they have a specific feel. I have a 2-track EP called River Sprint that is really gives you the imagery of something in the country, in nature. Like it's more of an, I wouldn't say epic, but it's got this imagery of this adventure in nature. So River Sprint and Primitive Supposition. I really like to keep my tracks as individual as they are. I like to keep a coherence if I'm putting them all together. And that's my endeavor for future albums and future CD releases. I mean, I'm very serious. It's gonna take a while. Bear with me, because I have intention behind this. But there will be in the future, maybe next year or the year after, me releasing, compiling maybe even the single tracks that have thematic coherence, or just older albums that I have that might be remastered, and giving them to you in CD form. But I like music that has a very coherent feel and mood and theme and idea all throughout the album. So that's my listening experience. My listening experience is not very much, it's not really a playlist listening experience. Yes, I appreciate different artists, and I will say some of my favorite labels will actually take in, 7 or 8 artists, but there is such a coherence in the album. Everything is just very smooth between transitions between tracks. The mood is the same. So I appreciate that. There is a label that I listen to quite frequently, Ultimate Records, for down-tempo electronic music. That's a very good listening experience with all my favorite artists. So I'm not against the listening experience when it comes to playlists. It's just not my experience and preference. So that all aside, making a playlist of your own choosing is fine. It's good. It's absolutely fine. As my prof has that experience, but he's very also intentional with his music, and he's also, if you didn't know, Professor Geek, not because I'm married to him, but he has great musical taste. And I say this as a composer, musician, and music educator. He's got great musical taste. So that's what I wanted to say first up front about playlists. By themselves, there's nothing wrong with personally compiling your own favorite tracks, even if they're from different artists, different albums. My own listening experience, I personally love listening to the whole album, the whole symphony, you know. When I listen to a symphony, I want to listen unless I do not have time, I try to listen to the whole symphony, all the movements. So, maybe that's just part of my classical music training. So, there is that. Professor Geek. Rock on. Yeah, it's great. Great music. So glad I married a man who has very good taste in music. I would have been a little bit slightly bereft if Professor Geek had horrible music taste. Oh, so anyway, let's talk about the downside though of playlists and something that is happening so much more these days, these past years with some platforms like Spotify. Now, I'm talking about Spotify in particular. This could very well happen on other streaming platforms. I just don't know. This is just my own experience on Spotify. For a while, I mean, for like maybe 10 or 12 years ago, I listened to Pandora, and there was a coherent music listening experience with that. I don't know if that's changed. They might be doing things like Spotify. So, what is the problem of playlists or the playlistification of the music listening experience? There's a lot, and I'm thinking on the fly. So again, I might not cover everything, and maybe you have some good things to input in the chat, which I'm very happy to read. But we have this business model now, this corporate business model with platforms like Spotify, where they really distribute an idea, a mood via playlists. And they have this network, and we'll get to curators in a little bit, hopefully, but they have this network and business model where they're pushing not really genre, not even really a specific artist unless it's a big name artist, but they're pushing, hey, here's a list of tracks to suit your happy mood, to suit your grieving mood, to suit your party mood, to suit your bad day mood, and they have these playlists. Now on the surface, it's not that bad. Like, okay, what's wrong with that? Maybe you should have a list of tracks for a very sad day where you feel like crying, or you have a bad day, or you have a happy day. That's fine, right? It is fine as an idea on its own, but the way the playlists are compiled is a little suspect. And it really boils down to computer input. Now, this might be AI, might be just how the algorithm is, but more and more there are tracks that get lumped together and say, well, all these tracks may sound the same, but a computer is initiating that. It's because the demand of artists, independent and popular mainstream artists, the demand of uploading and releasing is so huge. You know, obviously the internet is vast. And so a team of people, actual people for a company like Spotify, you just can't cope with all the demands of releasing and updated. So therefore, yes, they might respond to specific requests. I don't know. I really don't know. I'm not an expert on this model, but in lieu of that, or in light of that, they they resort to a machine. Spotify has a machine. It could be AI generated for user generation playlists or something. I'm not quite sure of the technical term, but basically it's the machine that decides who goes where, who goes with what. Now, maybe even that on its own, with a very comprehensive, very complex machine model, maybe that might not be so bad. But what happens with algorithm, as we see with things like YouTube, as we see with things like TikTok, it becomes more and more and more and more formulaic. So for indie artists who want to be known, who want to be given the opportunity to be seen, for that exposure, right? They start thinking, well, these are the most popular playlists, these are the most popular tracks, and these are how all the songs sound. Oh, okay, this is, for TikTok, for instance, the TikTokification. I forget what the term is. For TikTok in particular, the most viral videos are the most viral music videos, or videos that have music, are the ones where the 30 seconds have a very specific formula, a very specific hook, a very specific instrumentation, a very specific set of words or ideas. And because of that formula, and it does happen with Spotify with its algorithm latches onto a formula that gets the most views, that gets the most plays. And so that cues in the independent artist saying, well, I have to write my music like this, or my music has to sound like this artist or this playlist. And I have not seen it myself because I just don't use Spotify anymore. And when I did use Spotify, guess what? I followed specific artists and albums. I would listen to their albums before I end up liking them and buying their albums. I'm like, okay, I don't need Spotify anymore. Let me just write down the albums I like, and I'll get the albums another way. That was my musical listening experience as a Spotify listener. That's how I did it. But apparently a lot of people in the YouTube sphere are complaining. A lot of musicians, a lot of maybe even curators, I don't know, but they're complaining about things on these playlists sounding very much the same, very much like, okay, you keep pushing the same artist, and you assume you assume Spotify algorithm that because this artist gets played so much on this playlist, then listener B and C and D, they'll like this artist, but maybe the listener wasn't wanting to listen to that artist. There's also the problem, I'm just listing problems as I go, but there was a problem. There was a professional, I think he did professional curation for a time. I forgot, I just listened to his video, forgive me, I can't remember his name. But he said that sometimes the algorithm won't choose wisely a type of mood. So if you're feeling like you need to study for a test and you need to listen to some lo-fi ambient electronic music, well, sometimes there'll be the slip up that like a hair metal band track, even if it's slower moving metal piece, it will be put in this lo-fi feel, and then it takes the listener out of that reverie of just concentrating and studying, and then they'll skip it. And if the listener skips a track on Spotify, well, then Spotify, that cues the algorithm to say, oh, that track is not as popular. So that track's not popular, not because it's not mixed in well with this playlist, but people don't like this track, therefore I'm not going to recommend this track as much. We see that problem in a different light with something like a YouTube video. So because of the mass amount of information and uploads and release and all that, the only thing to maintain the integrity of the structure of Spotify is to put these tracks, whether mainstream or independent, in something like a playlist. Oh, this is electronic music to boost your mood. Let's go. Now, I found out a little late because I wasn't really paying attention to this. I'm just composing music. I'm just releasing my music on my own website. I highly recommend Bandzoogle if you're a musician and you want to release stuff. I had my reasons for leaving Bandcamp. I have a video on that if you want to check that out. Why I left Bandcamp. And actually, that video is like 3 years old, so there might be more things surfacing with Bandcamp as a platform as well that I didn't have knowledge at the time, or maybe it even didn't even happen at the time. But anyway, so I left Bandcamp. I set up my own website, soundofgraveyard.com. And yeah, I pay a fee every month, but I just like having my website. So anyway, I wasn't really paying attention to Spotify. I hadn't used Spotify in like months as a listener. And then I I started seeing, well, the first thing that I didn't care for that I saw a little bit later was something to do with playlists. And my music will be found on different playlists. I don't know how many. I certainly didn't get the listens to even feel like being on a playlist at all was even necessary. But there was one playlist that Spotify at one point recommended me. It's like, oh, Sound Engraver, you're Sound Engraver. Here's your music on this playlist. And I looked over the tracks. And I looked over the titles of the tracks and the avatars and the artist names and stuff. And based on my own professionalism and my modesty, as yes, I know it makes some people uncomfortable. I am Christian. My music was linked with playlists that had obscene avatars, obscene titles, a lot of profanity. It's like, well, you're electronic music, therefore you like this electronic music. And it was, I didn't listen to all of the music, but it wasn't music I was impressed with. And there was obscenity on either the image, and usually distributors won't allow obscene imagery, but they're fine with allowing obscene titles. And my track's like in the middle of all that. I was like, I don't want that. I didn't consent to having it be like that. So when people might listen to my track, even if my music is vastly different from all the other tracks of that playlist, they might get the idea. Maybe someone might get the idea of like, well, that's who she's associated with. And it's like, that's not what I want. That's not what I want. So there's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of issues with playlists and the music listening experience. You know, just as a quick recap, playlists are machine run, machine thought. Maybe AI is doing it now, but it is algorithmic. It's not a set of professional curators on staff who have business taste and artistic taste. No, this is machine done because it'd have to be for the platform to continue because there's just so much input and uploads. So there's that. And because of that, because it's machine run predominantly, everything starts sounding formulaic within playlists. You've got a very passive music listening experience. It's not active as it used to be with a CD or going to the record store. And I'm not like saying, well, I used to go to the record store. I actually had a very different music upbringing because I was a classical music nerd. So I most of my most of my music listening wasn't bands or anything. It was listening to classical music on a cassette tape. So I did have a different music listening experience. Even as I was becoming a musician. But there's something very personal about liking an artist, following where they're touring, or band, not just an artist, but a band, even though bands are all the bands that are touring now are like these people are in their 60s and 70s, and then everyone else, and myself included, we're all solo. We're all solo artists. It's a very different feel. It's a very different landscape these days. And I'm not ranting about it. It is very different. Anyway, where was I going with that? Yeah, there's not a lot of personality to these playlists because it's machine run. It's a very passive thing. We're like, oh yeah, I feel like this today, so I'm just going to click on this playlist. And professionals who've been in the industry of this streaming landscape, they do say that just because people listen to your track on a playlist doesn't mean they'll necessarily go to your music or your Instagram or your website because they have that track they like of yours on that playlist. And therefore, they're just going to stay on that playlist without going to your music. Now, again, this is opposite to my own experience because when I hear a track that I had never heard before and I'm like, whoa, who's this artist? I will spend, if I'm not doing anything else, I will spend about 15 minutes to an hour looking up their website, looking up their albums, looking up their YouTube channels. Like I want to know more about that artist right away, especially if I'm compelled and impacted by their music. And, eventually when I have a little bit more time with my YouTube channel, I just don't have time right now, I'd actually like to promote artists, whether independent artists that I think are phenomenal with their, not just their music composition, but their production. And then also mainstream, like Mick Mars, Right Side of Wrong, man. It's good stuff. So even if they're famous, I'm going to still promote them. If they're not so famous, I'm still going to promote them as long as their music is good. So I'd like to do that in the future when I have more time with YouTube. So anyway, playlistification really is a watered down music experience where you could just, shuffle and skip and cue the algorithm like, oh, you didn't like this song. Well, maybe you don't like this artist. Maybe you won't give this artist a time of day. So it becomes very impersonal. And for me, going into the direct to market model as an artist, I want my music to be, I hope, I aspire for my music to be a deeply personal experience. Now, first, it might sound selfish, it starts with me. Like, I want to make music I enjoy listening to. Now, that's not to say I listen to my music, but it's something where I can go back to a track and say, yeah, I like what I did there. And I'm doing that with my EP. I have a 4-track EP coming out. It was originally going to be an 8-track album. And it will be an album someday when I release it as a CD, but just for creative purposes, creative decisions, I decided to make a 4-track EP. I do see the light at the end of the tunnel finally. I've recorded all my violin. I've edited my violin. I just need to tweak it and make it sound a little bit better. And then I'm ready for mastering that EP, 4 tracks. It'd be nice if I could get it done by this year. We'll see. But I am learning a lot, and I'm really feeling happy with my learning curve, like going over the hump of learning a lot of stuff. All that to say is I want my music, starting with me, to be a deeply personal, enriching music experience. Music making, composing, editing, even though editing violin is super boring to me, I gotta go through it, and I gotta make sure it sounds as good as it can sound. And I think I'm pretty happy with the sound so far. But it starts with a personal artistic experience. Now, whether that translates to you, my listeners, if you guys like eclectic electronic music, or whether that doesn't, maybe it won't translate. Maybe that personal experience will not translate over to the online landscape or the physical landscape when I finally sell my music in the form of a CD. It doesn't really matter to me much as long as I start from the right place. And I promise you, I know you guys mostly listen to my commentary on art and popular culture, but this is just coming from my heart as a music maker, as a composer. Where was I going with that? Oh, I promise to you that anything that I produce, anything that I make, is something that's personally enriching to me. And it's experimental. I'm not afraid to be experimental because no one knows who I am really. For better or for worse, it comes from a place of experimentation and exploring. I love exploring soundscapes. I love exploring different harmonies and melodies and bass line and percussion. I love exploring how I can really up the ante with my percussion and rhythmic kit. And for that, it will be very creative and very different, for better or for worse. Maybe people won't care for my music because it's going to be different, but it comes from a place of this is personal, this is individualized, this is not catering to an algorithm, this is not catering to saying, well, listen, if you did this for the first 30 seconds of your track, and if you made your 5-minute track and reduced it, condensed it to a 3-minute track, you're going to be heard. It's like, that's awesome, but will I like my music? No, I will say there's one track that I took off even before leaving Spotify, 2 tracks actually, because it was just too long. It was too long-winded. I was like, okay, this 8-minute track needs to be 5 minutes, maybe under 5 minutes, and it is now. I just have to re-release it. So any decision I make is a personal creative decision. It's not catering to an algorithm. It's not going to cater to a curator. And I think I do want to talk about curators a little bit too. But let's take a break and see what you guys have to say in the chat. So playlists was one reason why I did leave Spotify. I'll get to the chat in just a second. I will say Spotify is also getting very, very involved with AI. And the more I listen to AI, or not listen to AI, the more I listen to what people have to say about AI, especially artists, especially musicians, the more I just want to just say AI is just not good. And it's not because AI itself is evil. The idea of a computer and an artificial intelligence learning on its own, that idea to me is not an evil idea. It's what people do with the AI. It's how people abuse different things using AI. And it's like, that's just, I know people might disagree with me. No, I love AI. Let's keep AI. Fine, keep AI. Anything you hear of my music is not AI. The closest thing it could be, the closest thing I could ever do with AI, and it's not even AI, it's SuperCollider. And it would be outputting things that I programmed SuperCollider to make. Anyway, so that's, yeah, so playlistification of the music listening experience. Spotify is getting really heavy with AI, or heavily involved with AI. Actually, Ace, before we get into the chat, Ace sent me a couple of videos. One was Ola, he's a metal artist. He's actually pretty famous on YouTube. Because now that I listened to a few of his videos, he interviewed John Petrucci and Mike Portnoy. I was like, whoa, he's pretty big. He's also in a band with what's his name? Charles Berthoud or something, a British bassist that I listen to a lot. So he's pretty popular. It was him. Okay, let's talk about this before we get into the chat. Ace did send me a couple videos of Ola's reaction to I think a bot or an actual scam artist using AI. Oh, man, AI is such a problem. This is a whole other can of worms. It's a whole other stream. But basically, he was what was it? Was his music taken down, or his music was demonetized? And it had to do with YouTube, but he had to look on Spotify of this account, this scam account based in China, based under a Chinese company that basically used AI to generate pretty much a same music listening experience as his metal music. And he got dinged for that on YouTube, and I think it was done through AI. So I can't remember the whole story, but he got his own music, got a strike on his own music based on some AI generated music that this bot account or scam account was producing on Spotify. It was like, so it's just so convoluted. So that's yet another reason why I pulled out. I was like, you know what? I'm not getting exposure. If people really want to hear my music, they can go to my website. They might be able to go to other platforms, but we'll see. Anyway, let's check out the chat, and then maybe we'll talk about curators and other stuff. Again, I'm not going to cover everything. It's just too much to talk about. Let's see. You guys are talking amongst yourselves. Samuel Proctor says, first of all, hey, hello, Amy L. Good to see you. Samuel Proctor says, when I first got into choosing my own music as a teenager, there were two options 10 years ago. Everyone my age used Pandora and Spotify. See, yeah, that they didn't exist when I was maybe they did. I don't know how old the companies are. So you had Pandora and Spotify. I did Pandora at the time until high school when I switched. If I have my music history correct, playlists began with the custom recorded cassette tapes and CDs. Now, I like the idea of customization. I do. In fact, an idea I had just walking around the yard today, I was like, you know, the way I would do like a playlist for listeners would be like doing, I don't even know how practical this would be. This is just, I don't even know why I'm saying this publicly, but like it would be an interesting idea if I had hardcore fans later as my music got better and as I released more music. It'd be interesting if like rewarding these hardcore fans with like a playlist of their favorite tracks and then sending it via WAV file, like a zip file, saying, "Hey, you like these 8 favorite tracks from different music pieces? Here you go." That way they can have the whole album of my different tracks. So I could see myself doing something like that if I had the practical resources and timing of it. I don't know how practical it would be, but it was just this idea I had, like, yeah, okay, you want a playlist of my music, but you don't want like the same tracks of one album. You want like you have like 10 of these tracks that you really like. Okay, boom, here you go. I mean, I would sell it as that, but I don't know. I don't know how practical it would be. Anyway, let's see. Peter Park's back again for another great stream. Glad you're back too. Uh, Final Fantasy does say to Gigawatt that he is not alone, that Final Fantasy has never downloaded Spotify. Brian, this is to Samuel Proctor, but I'll just go ahead and put it up since you are a channel member. I used to make mixtapes from CDs I had. Yeah, and that's the thing too. If I sell us CDs, people can do that. I would listen to them on my bus trip to and from school as a teen. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, so mixtapes are a thing. They've been around for a long time. So I'm not downing. I'm not dumping on the idea of a playlist. Yeah. Amy L says 2 gigawatt. Downloaded Spotify when I first got my first smartphone, but you never created an account because for some reason you couldn't agree to the user agreement. That's interesting. So you haven't used it. So there's a friction now. Like they made it hard for you to do that. So you just never bothered. Interesting. Samuel also confirms that he has thematic playlists. Yeah, good. Playlists, as Ace says, and I think this is true, are always better when you are the person that makes them. You'll have specific stuff for a mood or activity that the algorithm doesn't understand. Yeah, because it's not human. There are human curators, but there are also AI curators, and I just don't know. I just don't know. Yeah. Let's see what you all have to say. Ace confirms that Pandora playlists are better with certain genres more than others. Okay, so if I put on a lo-fi or blues, it'll be consistently good. Metal will be hit or miss. Interesting. That's interesting. Yeah, I don't really know anything much about Pandora anymore. I haven't used it in years, or haven't been on it in years. And I think I got rid of my SoundCloud, but apparently people say they found me on SoundCloud, so I keep forgetting to check, but I left SoundCloud too. The interface just it was a very impersonal experience for me. And the way I like to, this is how I write too, by the way. This is just as an artist thing in general. I typically make music or write stories the way I would want to listen and review and read stories. So if I don't like a listening, that's a hard word to say tonight. If I don't like the listening experience that Spotify provides or SoundCloud or something like that, then I as a listener will move on, and then I'll just try to find the CDs, all the albums that I like, and purchase them one at a time. I keep a head count. I keep track in my mind who I like, whose music I like the most, and I have a pretty hand selected, what I'm trying to say, list, or people that I follow, and I followed for years. So again, it's a very personal experience as a listener, and that's why I want to produce that as a music maker. Even if people say come to me, even if people who listen to my music say, "Listen, I appreciate that you're doing it this way, but you really would be more popular if you did it this way." It's like it's just not my personal preference to experience it myself. So I risk staying unpopular just because I prefer to make art the way I receive art. So let's see. I think that was my well, anyway, I thought I had more to say on that, but maybe not. Amy L says, that will never work for me. Why should I trust? Why should I trust their selection? Some happy songs or sad songs to me. Yeah. Yeah, artistic taste is so personal. It's so individual, and even a human curator might not get it. And even a human curator might not be musically savvy either. Some are. So there's that. Let's see. A Final Fantasy fan says another thing I noticed with Spotify, going off experience from my family who use it, there is an overabundance of ads. That is true. This is the same thing with YouTube Music. Okay, I want to tell you something too. I have my focus right here, my audio interface, and again, it doesn't matter to me anymore because I don't listen to my music on Spotify. But I remember being so ticked off when if you had the free version and the ads would come quite a bit between tracks, not even between EPs or albums, but between one or two tracks, and it got worse. I think it got worse and worse over time, if I remember correctly. And what's so bad about it is that sometimes music is mixed quite low, and it shouldn't be. It should be mixed not loud, not crazy loud, but it should be comparable. It should be a good volume. And you know, if you started with a dial and like the lowest part of the dial is at like 7 o'clock or 6 o'clock or in between, then maybe around 9 o'clock you should have a pretty good comparable mix. That's how I mix it, and I try to compare my volume to other tracks, other musicians, and then I also try to compare it to other tracks that I'm producing. It's just how you do it with mixing and mastering. And the the mixes that I've liked have been on the low end of volume, and then the ads come in and they're so offensive because of the output. Just their output is so loud. And I remember first starting with Spotify and I was like, "Oh, I don't like that. I don't like that at all." But if your computer, if your device, I don't know if they do this anymore. I don't know. I don't maybe they got around it. But back then when I experienced that, I would turn if your device is hooked to a computer, or if your excuse me, if your audio interface is hooked to a computer or device, you can actually turn the knob down and it won't pause the ads. Because if you just turned down your computer or your device, the volume there, then it would pause the ad. You'd have to listen to it, go through with that. That maybe they don't do that anymore, but they did that like 10 years ago, and it was really annoying. But I would always turn down my audio interface because that's how I listen to music anyway. And the platform didn't catch it, so they didn't catch that configuration. Maybe they have now. Maybe they're smart, but there's that. So yeah, let's continue on down. Yeah, sweet. Samuel Proctor says both Prof and Soundgraver have influenced me to actually listen to albums instead of just my custom playlist. Again, nothing is wrong with a custom playlist. Prof has quite a few, but he also listens to albums and CDs all the way through too. I love that personally. Yes, it's true. Even some of my favorite artists, they'll come out with an album and the cover art looks great, and it's like, oh man, that looks good. And then like maybe out of the 12 tracks, like I like only 3 of them. And I'm like, no, like this is good. Why didn't you? So there's gonna be that. There's always gonna be tracks that you don't really care for. But I still try to make it a very wholesome, holistic experience, if I use that term correctly. Okay, let's continue on. You guys have a lot to say about playlists. That's good. Um, One thing I noticed with the playlist is that you can sometimes see tracks repeat, especially if 2 or more people upload the same track. I'm not aware of that, yeah. Amy L asks if the playlists are machine run, then it is AI, even if it's an older definition of AI. Yeah, I mean, it is computer generated, so it's yeah, I would say you're right because the algorithm would have to learn things as people listen to tracks on repeat or as they drop tracks. So it's constantly shuffling and interpolating information based on that information. So you're right, even if it's an older version of AI, that would be the machine process. Yeah. It's not you, Amiel, because you're an artist too. I forget what you do though. I forgot if you're a musician or a graphic artist. I think you're an artist of some kind. Um, you have at least you have knowledge of art for sure. But so it's not just, I'm not saying this because you said as much, but or you think as much, but I try to be very careful for what is machine generated and what is AI, what is digital and what is AI, because a lot of people say, well, if this is computer generated, this is AI. It's like, well, that's not always how it works. So, all right. Amy L continues, Sound Engraver in short, the problem is software people making unfounded assumptions. Yeah, assumptions is a good word. Good design is not valued anymore, not in software circles. Yeah, that's probably true. That is probably true. Okay, so let me bring this up. Thank you for bringing this up. This is very, very, very important. Okay, so welcome, by the way. Imaginaria, I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. There is still a song of yours on Spotify. It's from an album with a bunch of artists. The track is called Sheer. Also, have you tried using Bandcamp at some point? Yes, so I do have a video I made 3 years ago why I left Bandcamp. And I really, unless something changes in my creative endeavors or even business endeavors, I personally don't see myself using Bandcamp anymore. I use this website service called Bandzoogle, where musicians can make their own websites. And yes, it's a monthly fee, and yes, it's a little steep. Well, it's not that steep, but yes, I do pay between, in my history, 12 to almost $20 for this service a month. It is steep, but if I start selling more and seeing it might be worth the cost, any sale I make a complete 100% commission. There's no, if the processing fee through Stripe is there, which it is, it's like really small. It's like 20%, not 20%, 2%. It's a very small percentage. Whereas with Bandcamp, it's almost a 20, at least a few years ago, it was almost a 21% cut from what Bandcamp gets because it's a free service. You can upload your music for free. And then the processing fee that they use for whatever payment processors they use, it's a 6% cut. So it's a 20, back then, 3 years ago, it was a 20% cut, 21% cut. With Bandzoogle, if let's say I started selling music a lot more frequently, it'd be worth the monthly payment. I want to do a lot of stuff. You can make your own store. You can sell. I'd like to sell. I probably shouldn't mention this in the public, but I think it's warranted. I can. Sell music transcriptions, for instance. Sell things on a store on the website as well as my music. So, yeah, it's a pretty hefty fee, but if you do have a music business, it's definitely worth it. Now let me pull that up. So Bandcamp, that's what I answered first. I do have my reasons for leaving Bandcamp. Sheer, my track Sheer, this is really important. Thank you for bringing it up. Sheer was an electronic track years ago, I think now, like 5 years ago. It was a collaboration. I don't know who reached out to me. It was like this British radio host for this underground music scene. And I thought I was going to get some exposure. So he asked me, I forgot who it was, by the way. I think if he still runs his record label, it's called Loki Recordings, like the mythical character Loki. And so Loki Recordings got to me, or reached out to me saying, hey, I like your choice with what you're doing with electronic music. Can we do a collaboration? I'd like for you to I'd like for you to compose something for a radio broadcasting in the UK. I was like, sure, that sounds great. So that is Sheer. It's not my favorite, by the way. This was when I was really experimenting and stuff and getting better with my craft. And there's stuff I don't really like about that track. You can listen to it. Point is, Sheer is not mine exclusively. Loki Recordings, and it was a contract. It was what was it called, not exclusive or non-exclusive. I can't even remember, but basically, what you guys you lawyers in the chat, basically, I agreed that Loki Recordings ought to have rights for the mastering of that song because I composed the track, but the artist for Loki Recordings mastered the track. So that music is his. In fact, I did a YouTube video years ago on a SuperCollider demo that featured the making of that music track, and I got dinged for it. I got a copyright. No, it wasn't a strike. It was a copyright something. I can't remember. It's not a strike. It was a softer version. Like, oh, you're you're playing music that you made up, but you don't have rights to. And it was fair because I signed the contract that I did not have the mastering rights, even though it was not quite mastered in the process of making the music video. YouTube saw that's the same music to me, so you don't have rights to that. So Loki Recordings has rights to that track. Therefore, it still can be played on Spotify. And there's nothing I can do about it. I don't really care either. It's a track that I did. So that was based on a collaboration where I think I did have rights to the mastering, but he also had rights to the mastering. And so I can't do anything with that track, even if I wanted to. So thank you. Thank you for bringing that up. This Jozo's Corner, yeah, Spotify is releasing, it's promoting even AI generated music. And that's another problem. That's a whole other topic for another stream, but it, yeah, there's some stuff, and I can't cover it all. Ace says, I only keep Spotify to support some independent artists and to listen to Fan Man Superman Live's podcast. I didn't know he had it on Spotify. You know, that's another thing too. Spotify, I'm not against Spotify being a platform for podcasts, but again, it sort of pulls away from the personal listening experience. Man, I'm having a hard time saying that word tonight. Um, and again, it's a preference thing. It's like, well, you know, I just want to focus on music. Ah, thanks, Crystal Ashes. Well, you sort of are a sponsor. You're a member. And you have purchased my music before. You should check out Essie's music if you haven't. It's awesome. Thank you. It's very eclectic. And but you know what, the EP I'm working on now, I'm just getting happy with the sound. It's been since April of 2023 since I've released a track. I haven't released anything this year, but I feel good. I feel good about the music I'm producing now. I've gotten a lot more skillful over the months, and it will be my second attempt to master my music. So there you go. Samuel Proctor, let's see. Brenda Lee, Ella Fitzgerald, Peggy Lee. What are you talking about there? Like these artists who I appreciate, but I don't know who you're talking. Oh, are you talking about Christmas? Are you talking about Christmas? I don't know. Samuel says, since I've been getting into CD albums, yeah, I've been introduced to more songs I've never would have heard or known it was from a musician I like. That's good. That's good. For example, I had no idea Flash was from Queen. I'm now obsessed with it and ended up watching the 1980s Flash Gordon movie last week. Talk about a perfect adaptation. See, it all comes together. Yeah, when there's intentionality, I don't like that word, intent behind a creative endeavor and process and production, then it's a very wonderful thing. All because you heard it from Best of Queen, of your Best of Queen CD. Yeah, I saw him, Big Al. Where are you? Where'd you go? Hello, Sound Engraver. Every time people talk AI, artificial intelligence, it still looks like Al or AL. Yeah, that's true. Sorry, Al. No, I'm talking about AI. Actually, I think I now When I write in AI, I actually think I use the lowercase I. I don't think I use the uppercase I anymore. Let's see. Amy L says, or yeah, Amy L says, yes, this is precisely why people hate ads. If the AI is so good, they should figure out a way to insert ads in a way that's not so obnoxious. Yeah. A 6% cut sounds reasonable to me. Reasonable to me, says Amy L. When I was in art school, I was told some art galleries can take something like a 60% cut. Well, the 6% cut is from the processing, the payment processor. The 15% cut is added onto that. That's what Bandcamp takes. And it might be more. I don't know. It might be less. I don't know. All right. I mean, in fairness, music labels, like major music labels, took way more of a cut for even mainstream artists. So I know people will choose 15%, 21% over paying a monthly fee. It's a matter of your business choice. It's like it's a business preference. Like I'm not against people using Bandcamp. I got an email maybe a few months back. I can't remember who emailed me, but it was a composer, maybe a YouTube musician who got back to me on Bandcamp, and he was giving me updates, and I should have I hope I kept the email because he was giving me updates about Bandcamp that was morally gray, like maybe Bandcamp shouldn't be doing this. So I don't know. I'm trying. What? What, Ace? I'm trying to send this stream to my friend, but it's showing up as restricted. That's a shame. I think the algorithm is trying to bury you. I love you. I love you, algorithm. Yeah. So I was going to be talking about curators, but okay, let's see. Maybe I don't have too much to say about curators. One second. Let me I need to pause for one brief second, then I'll be right back. One sec. All right. Might have to get more water, just depending. SC, thank you. Wow, what a compliment. SC streams are too hardcore for normies. Appreciate that. I'm kind of honest. Can I just go on a rant real quick? Like, on the one hand, yes, my sound engraver is an artist name for a musician, for a composer, but it's my YouTube channel, so there's going to be that part of the YouTube experience where it's music, it's SuperCollider demos, it's maybe MuseScore tutorials, for music software. It's going to be music based, it's going to be music related. And I really would like to talk about music analysis, like harmonic analysis or composition analysis. I love that kind of stuff. I don't have time right now, but I really would like to do it when I do have time. So there's that. But then there's this other side of the Sound Engraver channel where art is important, literature is important. So last week I was talking about Batman. Writing is important, and science fiction is important to me. And if the topic is good, I will do a random literature video or sci-fi video, if I feel like the topic is worth talking about, and if I feel like no one else is talking about it. That all said, man, I have so much pushback. I get so many negative comments when I am very opinionated, especially when it comes to things like sci-fi and works of sci-fi that I don't think are personally good. And I got this comment like, okay, so even from old shorts from old streams, like for instance, Hyperion from Dan Simmons, sci-fi cult classic. It's a classic for reasons I sort of understand and I don't understand. But all in all, besides two short stories he wrote inside the literature, it's not a well done book. It's not a well written book. It's like a 1 out of 5 stars. It's just not well written. It's interesting. The world building is interesting. It's a very interesting world. I will give Dan Simmons that. and a couple interesting stories, very well written stories. But apart from that, it's not a well written book. And I tell you, I get so much flack. To this day, I get flack. I had a recent comment saying, "This is the first and last video I will ever watch of yours. And you're so loud." And I probably was loud because I was very emotional about my reading experience. And I get those comments all the time when it comes to my opinions on sci-fi. And it's just part of the course. So yeah, I do have, and my opinions on art, man, don't get me started on that. Like, people do not like me talking about art the way I talk about art, and I just can't help it. Fotis and stuff, man, good to see you. Yeah, long time no see. Hopefully your is it electronic music or just music in general? Yeah, Fotis and stuff is Fotis. Is that your artist name? Because I haven't seen him in a long time, but he composes music with the intention of putting it behind gameplay. So check out his channel if you are still active on your channel. All right. Crystal Asha says, how dare you have an opinion different from mine? I know. Well, see, I feel like in general, people are okay with opinions, but when you are opinionated, that's where people have a problem. They don't like you for having very strong opinions about stuff they like. And it's like, I'm not saying you can't like that stuff. Anyway, we were talking about curators. I guess we were talking about curators. What did I want to say about curators? Yes, yeah, this is important. And it might not be a lot, but I wanted to talk about music curators. Now, this is besides the point that there are now AI-generated curation of music tracks and playlists, and I just think that's a problem. It causes music to be very formulaic. It also causes, I did hear about this, not sure if it's true, this is where I heard from people in the industry, like with something like Spotify, the problem with user-generated playlists and computer-generated playlists from AI is that you'll start having like bot accounts swarm in and bot musicians and all sorts of problems where you as a human musician, you might see a spike in views and then an instantaneous drop after that. Now, we should see progress. I never made it this far before in Spotify, but if I ever got to 10,000 views on Spotify, I would expect some increase in sales or in listeners or in fans. But with so much scam artists out there and bot accounts and all sorts of things, some of these streams and some of these views aren't real. And the algorithm can pick it up, or sometimes it doesn't. And it really skews the numbers of what you see on your Spotify data. So that's an aside. We want to talk about human curators. Now, I was listening to this curator. Actually, he's pretty savvy when it comes to music. He knew a little bit about how to, put a song after another song before another song. He had some musical sensibilities, which is great. But music curation it has also become a little bit of a problem as well, for a couple of reasons. There is so much input that only one person can receive. Would say, "Oh, upload my song. Hey, check out my track. Can you upload my track to your professional personalized playlist and put it on the streaming platforms and all that?" And maybe they have good intentions. Maybe these human curators have good intentions and they want to, but because of the absolute insane demand on them of getting so many requests, they have to be almost machine-like just to get through their line of work. And that's just one example. I'm trying to think of other things that I had heard. Oh gosh, I'm losing my train of thought. We could probably talk about music curation another time, but the one thing I did want to say was artists, up and coming artists who want to be independent and want to have their own career, they might be enticed, tempted, if you will, to contact all music curators and all music curating platforms to submit their songs for release. And maybe you have an acceptance rate, maybe you have an acceptance, like a percentage of being selected for a playlist, or maybe not. But what does happen, unfortunately, is artists will say, "Well, I'm investing in my music business. I'll pay this fee for this time for this curator," with the pretty likely chance of being rejected. But people get this false sense and this idea saying, "Well, I won't get exposed unless I have a legit curator accepting my music for a playlist." And I maybe for 2 seconds had that mindset. I'm like, maybe that's not such a bad idea. Maybe I pay to play, kind of like with Facebook ads, you pay to play to get your stuff out there. And it's like, and then I abandoned that idea. I was like, it's not worth the energy. It's not worth the money. And even so, even if people are willing to pay for a curator's input and approval, it's still quite the demand. It's still quite an increase of submissions where the human curator might have to feed it into a machine just to. It's kind of like professor applications. I think I said this story before, but I remember there's this in the University of Washington. Maybe that room still exists. I don't know. And on the second floor, there's this storage room where you could see down to the small hall of the music building. And at least at the time I was studying music, that little storage space, there were boxes and boxes and boxes of rejected applications for professorship. And it's the same way, I think, even in the digital space. Even if you can go through music and say, that's not going to work, that's not going to work. You need to do this. Curators are paid to give feedback, to give input. And even if your music is top tier, high quality, they could say something as small as, "You have a really nice production here. You have a really nice track. You have great composition, but it's not going to fit the mood of my playlist here. Sorry, better luck next time." And so they give that kind of input, and that to them is valid. But to the person who slaved away, on that track or on that album, I think, man, maybe I'm not legitimate. So you have to have by the way, you just in general as an artist, but definitely as a musician and as a composer, you have to have a really healthy ego with very realistic expectations of yourself and of your skill. And even if you're rejected by other people, you could still have enough resources and understanding and skill saying, "You know what, they didn't like it, but I'm just going to go ahead and release it anyway." So curators also might have been a nice idea at one point, but it's I don't think it's going to be a valid way, like that pay to play. I don't think that's a valid way to get your music known. So before I get into the final act of this stream, let me cough for a second, get some water, and then we're going to be talking about the direct to market model, because I like talking about that too. Whew. All right. Thank you. I'm not sick anymore. There's always that dry cough lingering. So, yeah, let's talk about direct to market, and then we'll get back to the chat. So all this to say, this was very much a music-based idea. Lance, the film guy, thank you for coming. And I can't remember, are you a filmmaker? Because if you are, you're an artist, as a musician is, as a visual artist is. And so this was mainly topical. This was mainly personal reasons why I left Spotify, a little bit of giving you the reasons why I left Bandcamp. But all this has to do with this all has to do with the artist experience, the artistic experience of getting your art out there, writing, music, film work, graphic novel. It's all there. Like, you are an artist, and yeah, I was primarily talking about the problems with music streaming and I haven't covered all the bases. I feel like there's like so many things to talk about, but we can't in the time frame we have in the stream, because we're almost approaching 90 minutes as per usual, right? So, uh, I wanted to lead with all these problems with the streaming platforms and how it not only hinders the artistic experience of the personal artist, but also the listening experience, the listener's experience. And I can imagine this is the same for things like YouTube platforms or film platforms, whatever the case is. The corporate bubble that we see with these platforms, I feel like is applied to other things, even if I'm not aware of it. And maybe you guys can confirm if you've experienced this with film or with, other artistic platforms, art platforms. I'm not a visual artist, but I'm sure art platforms are like, yeah, pay to play to get your art promoted this way. I'm sure it's bad. I'm sure it's maybe I've heard the word vampiric, it sucks the energy right out of the artist. It sucks the soul of the artist. And this all leads to my main point at the end of the stream is we need to really get serious about the direct market model. Now, that's a term, maybe it's too businessy a term, maybe it's too corporate a term even, but I think it's an important term. Direct to market, and that is creating a very personal and very individualized experience with your listeners, with your buyers, with your viewers, whatever art you work in. Now, it really is true of the world we live in that the way to do that is social media. I say this not having any Facebook account, not having a Twitter account, never having an Instagram account. Like I'm actually not on social media besides YouTube, where you can contact me anytime, or my website, soundengraver.com, if you want to join my mailing list. I'll just write that down right now. Sound Engraver, you get a free track. I need to actually update the free track. Maybe a free album. I don't know. I can't remember. I need to keep changing the tracks. That way people don't get the same tracks. I think it's a free track. I don't know which track it is. But yeah, join my mailing list and touch base. Contact actually my business. My business email is contact@soundengraver.com. And if you want to talk art, I mean, I will say, a few people of you guys know, I'm a little slow with responding because sometimes I'm just super busy with teaching. But if you need a question about art or music or how you can get my music or whatever, that's there for you to have. But I say all this to make it a personal, a customized, a very personal experience from me to you. How you see me talking right now, this is how I talk. Professor Geek can confirm. I talk like this in the living room. I talk like this at the grocery store. There's no barrier. There's no third party. You can't get to me through an agent. You can't get to me. Now I'm saying like this like I'm so popular, but you know what I mean. It's like this is the world we live in now, where we can have direct contact. Now we need boundaries, professional boundaries. I've had to discourage people from very long emails to me for collaboration and stuff. There was one point where someone wanted to collaborate and I just couldn't. But then he started becoming very political, and then he hadn't realized, like, I don't really agree with anything you say, so I'm going to just tell you my politics, and then I never heard from him again. So, I mean, yes, there's going to be boundaries. When I say contact me, I like it in a very professional way as well. And so for that reason, I'm very slow with my business email. But anyway, all that to say is direct to market. It's like YouTube is the thing. I know people have their gripes with YouTube. I wouldn't disagree with a lot of those gripes. And I'm sure people say, well, you got to go to the other alternatives. And I tried once. I did the alternative before Elon Musk bought Twitter. I went to Minds. I still don't know if Minds is a thing anymore. People say, well, you get monetized if you go to this YouTube, this video platform. I was like, I personally don't care about monetization with videos. It's great if I have it, but I personally don't care. My my main thing with YouTube is just to reach out to as many people as possible, for better, for worse. For people to come saying, I love your stuff, to other people saying, you are the most opinionated person I've ever seen. Because I get both. But the point is you see me for who I am. And my music is completely authentic to me. There's no AI generation. I never buy MIDI chord packs. Those chords that you're going to hear on my EP, those chords that you have heard on my previous albums, I composed those chords. Even if it's like a 1 minor 2 5 minor 6 whatever one chord, even if it's standard chord progressions, I made those chords. I didn't buy chords. I didn't buy a bass line. I didn't buy an AI plugin to create a drum kit for me. All the rhythm you hear is personally crafted from one very large drum kit to another, and a whole lot of modification. And it's time consuming, and I love it because I love experimenting. But the whole point is, it's very authentic, a very personal experience. And I would rather be unpopular with a few listeners with that experience than something that I pay to artificially boost my views, whether on YouTube or with something like Spotify. I can't do it. I can't. I would rather have a very small email list for the rest of my life than artificially blow up. You know what? Now, I could artificially blow up. No. I take that back. I could organically blow up if I have a very strong opinion on art or science fiction. But I've gone viral in a very negative way. Not viral, but they got a lot of views. And people were not happy with me. That's besides the point. The point is direct to market, people knowing who you are on YouTube, and then knowing your thoughts on art, knowing your thoughts on your specific medium, knowing your expertise. I was like, whoa, she does know about music. She does know about composition, you know, and the same can be true for you who illustrate. Like, I don't know how to illustrate. And maybe on your YouTube, you just show sketch work. Like, okay, this is the anatomy of the face. This is how you would do the eyes. This is how you would draw a hand. And that really does interest people for an educational purpose, but also just to get to know you as an artist. So with something like a music streaming platform, yeah, okay, I get it. But if you have it on Spotify, you'll be known. It's like, but will I be known? Will people be interested in my music? It's not been my experience they have been. Maybe that's wrong. Maybe a couple people have been interested in my music because of Spotify. But I feel like maybe they can just find me on my YouTube artist channel and my YouTube channel and my website. And so it's very closed in circle. It's a very much a gated community, if you will, because I'm always on YouTube, always on my email, not as much as I should be on my actual website, but those are very specific areas to me. It just was not the same with Spotify. For a while it was not the same for Twitter. I was having a very rough experience with Twitter. It might change if I go back to X, but it might not. I don't know. But this is how you can relate to the stuff I'm working on. And to be honest, my favorite artists are also the ones who promote their music and promote their processing and music making experience on YouTube. And that's true of writers too. I'm a follower of RJ the Fourth Age, and there's a black and white comic I would like to read of his because I follow his commentary, because I think he's an interesting person. He's a good lecturer. He might not think so, but he knows how to lead a discussion on his own with no one. In fact, this is not a critique of his channel. He has the most energy when he's by himself. And I like listening to him the most when he's by himself. It's great that he has guests on promoting their art, but the energy, at least in my experience, drops substantially. And I want to give you the same energy. Like, I love that you guys are watching me and stuff like that. I want to give you good energy that's not artificial. This is my energy. Prof knows I'm a quirky individual. I've got some words, I've got some opinions, I've got some antics, and it's all true. There's no like you gotta up your game with all your energy and be extroverted even though you're introverted. No, I'm still an introvert. Um, so there's that. Anyway, so direct to market. And so that's why people that's why I encourage people who are artists to find a social media platform. It doesn't have to be YouTube, doesn't have to be a video format, but a platform of some kind where you start generating your own audience. Let me take a moment too, though, and say what you should not do on YouTube. And this might be a rant, and you feel free to disagree with me, but you should not. I want to put this politely. Be mindful of who you promote and who you follow on YouTube, because some people do the YouTube experience like a social media experience. Not as much as before, but years ago, people would say, "I'll sub to you if you sub to me, sub for sub. I'll watch your videos if you watch my videos." And it's like that's not the YouTube experience. Just like how I make music, my music is synonymous with my music listening experience. The way I make music is the way I want to hear music. Like I said all that before with the whole Spotify thing. It's true of YouTube. I may support your channel. I might watch a video, but sometimes I won't have time to watch YouTube, and sometimes I want my mind fixed on a very specific topic. Sometimes I want to go to an educational video. And sometimes I won't be always there to support a person I do like or do respect. And even people I follow on YouTube, sometimes they'll say stuff that I have no interest in. Like even people I've followed for years. It's a very authentic experience. I listen to who I want to listen to at the time I want to listen. And that might sound selfish, right? Like you're just a brat listening to people only you want to listen to without supporting other people. But I have seen people like build this community, and they'll say, "Hey, sub to her so she'll sub to you. Put her as a mod so she can put her channel on the chat, and then you can become a mod, and you can become a guest, and you can do all this collaborating and stuff." And it's like that's just not how YouTube works. YouTube is a very, I would say, very individualized experience. You have it or you don't. Now, I'm not saying you can't collaborate with people. I think collaboration is very good. I don't have time to collaborate now. I hardly have time to do this stream, to be honest, even though I love it. I was like, what, 2 hours? You have time. I just love doing it. I make time. I actually do make time for my streams. But collaboration is good, but really, in my experience, the people who are by themselves, who talk to, even if they're great interviewers, I've noticed people who are by themselves talking about the things that interest them interest me. And if it doesn't, then I'll go away. But the energy is a very singular thing. Now, I'm not talking about podcasts that have like co-hosts, like like more than one host, like the political channel Trigonometry. It's two people, and that's fine. They play back and forth. I mean, there's that, but the whole sub for sub, you sub me, I'll sub you. You listen to my stream, I'll watch your stream. It's like that's a very transactional thing. Go to the channels that you like, watch the videos you like, and that is going to help you with the direct market. Because everyone who's listening to you and listening to what you have to say, they might be interested in your art. They might have that chance. And there's some people I listen to who are writers who I'm like, I have got to keep, I have it in my mind. Like, I need to read that person's novel. I need to read that person's book series. I will. You know, it's watching their YouTube channel. I'm like, yes, he mentioned his book here. I keep meaning to read his book. And so maybe they might not go to your art directly immediately, even if they like you. But there's that chance, like, oh yeah, she's got an album coming up. I should check it out. Crystal Ashes. Oh, I'm missing some chat. Let me see what you guys are saying. Ace says, "Hey Ace, you say my friend says your other streams work for her. I guess it's just live stuff that's restricted. That's weird. Is she out of the country? Maybe it's an international thing. But I do have people who are from different points in the world. So I don't know. That's very strange. My mic is very far away, so hopefully I had the right volume. Hopefully I didn't sound so canned this whole stream. Let's continue on down. So Lance the film guy confirms I'm actually a writer. I mean, you're actually a writer. Currently, you are writing a romance inspirational novel that you should be done with by Christmas. That's good. Excuse me. Excuse me. I'm thinking about self-publishing through Amazon. Perfect. Sorry. My apologies. Yeah, that's good. Self-publishing is good. You know, the thing is with not really with Spotify, but with the music industry, you know, the music industry has been quite abusive, you know, to artists, and people are going independent. It's the same way with publishing. Like, you have to have a formula, like, oh, we can only accept this amount of chapter books, and it needs to be on this topic, and you need to have X amount of characters, and these characters need to be like this. And it's like, I would rather just have a few readers on something that meant so much to me as a writer than that false sense of like catering to a publisher. Okay, Photos and Stuff says, I just sent you my curated list of SuperCollider resources from GitHub. I guess I am a GitHub curator. That's good. I might try GitHub. I did Pastebin for a while. I haven't been on Pastebin for a long time. It worked with me. I have a lot of viewership on Pastebin for, maybe it's bots, I don't know. But yeah, I'll check that out. Cool. Crystal Ashes says, I got Rural Prospects. Not sure if it's changed. It probably hasn't, so I probably should change it. Yeah. Rural Prospects was my one single track I released in 2020. Well, I released 4 in 2020. 1 per month, and then I stopped. Sound Engraver responds like one who got sent a physical letter. It takes a bit to receive and a bit to send back, but she always at least responds. Yeah, I mean, unless it's absolute spam, you know, I try to respond. Yeah. Crystal Ashes says, for some reason I thought you said I never buy midi-chlorians. No, I don't buy those either. No, MIDI chord packs. Yeah, I guess if you say it really fast, it sounds like midi-chlorians. MIDI chord packs. Yeah. I love crafting. So Voda says I love crafting my own sounds from scratch too. Yeah, it's great stuff. And I'm taking my first SuperCollider lesson in a few weeks with Eli Fieldsdale. I didn't know he did private lessons. I sent an email to him because I had a question, and it's very involved. Like, and maybe just so you know too, sometimes when you have questions you send me, sometimes the answer just takes a long time to come up with. And I knew sending him an email, it was a very involved SuperCollider question. And I don't like sending those kind of emails, but I was really curious. And then finally he got back, and he was generous. He's a professor. He has his own students to work with, and, you know, own projects to grade. And he said, you know, I could probably explain this better in a very polite way. He was fine to say it. He's like, I can explain this much better in detail through lessons. I'm sure you know I give lessons. I was like, I didn't know you give lessons. So I was like, this is perfect. You know, I give music lessons all the time. And I was like, okay, yeah, let's do like a lesson a month. I can afford a lesson a month. So we're going to try to meet maybe once a month. And it's just going to get me out of this SuperCollider funk, because it's like, it's the funk is there. It's like, there's so much I want to do with SuperCollider, but it's just all disorganized. Amy L says my audio sounds great. That's good. No, so let me just bring this up. No, you're getting a private SE lesson from Eli Fieldsdale himself. He gives out lessons. And in fact, I told him, I said, listen, I'll recommend your lessons on my YouTube channel when I mention SuperCollider. So I am mentioning, pitch him an email. Pitch him an email like you're selling something. No, send him an email if you're interested in SuperCollider lessons. The only thing is he's a professor, and so this time of year is very busy for him. So just keep in mind he might not be able to meet toward the end of the semester. I'm married to a professor, Professor Geek, and well, he's on break now for Thanksgiving, but the load can get pretty intense. So yeah, he offers lessons. I didn't know that. So, I was like, I didn't think he needed to since he was a professor. But yeah, recommended. I don't know what how he teaches, so I'll give a recommendation after my first lesson. Imaginaria, I hope I'm saying your name correct. Yay, personally, I found your channel because you did a John Williams stream on his birthday. Wow. Then I got into your wonderful music. Oh my gosh. See? It works. YouTube works. It's sometimes it behaves like serendipity. You know, I will say, I gotta run after this, but well, no, I want to give you guys an update too. I will say, sometimes with YouTube, sometimes you just do feel discouraged a little bit for not getting a lot of views. But I tell you what, depending on your YouTube video, it needs to be educational. This is my experience as a music person. Make an educational video and make it short. YouTube says, no, 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 you need like 8 to 10 minutes on a video so you can get mid credit or mid ad revenue. Like they'll put an ad in the middle of your video. I tell you what, yeah, I don't make a lot of money on these, but I get evergreen views from my very, very short music educational videos. Currently it's MuseScore, the music software, and I need to do more videos, but I try to keep it under 2 minutes. I tell you, those, or at least the first two on my list, they just keep getting views. They just keep generating. And I remember my pickup measure video in particular had like no views for like a few months. I was like, man, that was lame. But I had fun. It was educational. And now it's like, it just does not stop getting views. And I do not stop getting ad revenue from it. So sometimes it takes like a year to like, you know, plant the seed, water the seed, grow the crop. Sometimes it takes a season. Sometimes it takes a few years, by the way, but then it comes back. Did I freeze? Did I freeze? Okay. Amy L says mid video ads turns me off. They're clueless why people don't like ads. Yeah, I try not to have. If I have like a 2-hour stream, I'll put an ad after 30 minutes, after an hour, maybe after 90 minutes. But YouTube has this horrible habit of auto-populating like all throughout the stream, and I have to clean it up. Like I have to go in my YouTube studio and clean up all the ads because I don't like a lot of ads on replaying streams either. I don't. And sometimes in YouTube, by the way, you probably know this, but YouTube gives you the option of running ads while you're live streaming. I'm so glad it's not automatic. You do have the choice to shut it off. But some people don't realize that when they're streaming, an ad will pop up and then they'll come back after you skip it. You have the option of putting the ads in the middle of a live stream. I don't care for that at all, so I don't put it. So anyway, so an update real quick before I sign off here. So a couple music updates. So my EP, as I said before, I'm seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. It's 4 tracks, it's all electronic music. 3 tracks have violin recorded on it. And there's going to be some good violin in it. There's going to be some processing effects on the violin, but overall I'm pretty happy with the sound. I just need to tweak it, get it sharper, get it a lot more present, and then finally, the mix is pretty much done. I need to master my tracks. So 3 of the 4. The other one, I was like, you know, I don't think I need violin for this one. It's just this upbeat, quirky, happy track that has 2 instruments that sound fine without a violin. So I was happy that I didn't have to do all the violin. Violin is very involved. And my wonderful husband, Professor, he's so supportive. He said, "Hey, I know you're feeling a little strained. You wanted to release this music a long time ago, but when you add the violin to it, it changes everything. That's your signature. Not many people, very few people even, can work in electronic music and violin. So you have that for your signature. I'm like, yes, that's true. It's true. I could play violin and play electronic or compose electronic music. So the EP is coming. I wanted to release it in October, then I got sick, and then it's just been it's been a very involved process, but it is coming. I would love to release it this year, before the new year. And then 2025, I'm going to be releasing. I'm going to be very serious. In fact, I had to say no to some other creative projects that I want to do because like releasing music is super important to me. It's so important. I just cannot not release music. It's very, very important to me. Um, so that's kind of on the dock for my creative experience and process. What was the other thing? Oh, but I did have to sort of take a slight creative break from being too involved in my EP because this month, November, marks the 30th anniversary of Donkey Kong Country, and I have a playlist. It's incomplete right now. I need to upload 3 videos of all the soundtracks that are missing on that playlist, the YouTube playlist. Yeah, playlists on YouTube are fine. And so it's Donkey Kong Country, the music, and it's not really, it's a very light analysis, but it's more of a scoring of the different tracks by David Wise, Eveline Fisher, and I think Robin Beanland did one track, but I don't think I mentioned him. So I apologize, Mr. Beanland. I think it's a he. But David Wise and Eveline Fisher for the first. So I'm trying to complete, at least upload the first 3 parts of that playlist for the 30th anniversary of Donkey Kong. It's great. So that will be released probably by the end of this week. And then I'm happy writing science fiction. Finished one of my short stories. Need to write another one. Definitely 1 or 2 more by the end of the year. But my longer fiction is actually getting nice and tight. It's very good. So we have all that. So anyway, Crystal Ashes says that you'd have to be a complete anarchist to have ads play during your streams. Yeah, it's weird. I mean, if it wasn't an option, then I would have to just apologize, saying, "Sorry, guys, I can't do anything about it." But you do have the option. All right, let's see. Let's head on out. I need to actually make a phone call before date night. So thank you guys so much for watching and listening. And just I know it was more music related than art related, but it all coincides. It all connects. But until I see you next, thank you always for joining me here. Until I see you next, keep producing, preserving, and promoting that good art you love. And I wish you a good, happy Thanksgiving.